Hello everyone, my name is Sara Harberson and I am America's College Counselor. I just want to make sure that we are live. If you can send some emojis out there, let me know that you're there. Oh, there we go. Wonderful. It's good to see you all. Today we're going to, or I should say tonight, we are going to be doing a rapid fire Q&A. And so students and parents and college counselors can ask me questions about the college admissions process. If you are new to these Facebook Lives, I do them every single month and I save them on my Facebook pages for Sara Harberson and Admissions Revolution. You can also check out all of my free resources on saraharberson.com and admissionsrevolution.com as well. There's a lot going on in college admissions. Today we heard from Cornell University that they would be suspending the ACT and SAT for the class of 2022. So we were waiting for some of those big name universities to make some announcements about standardized tests for the current junior year class, the class of 2022. Cornell has made that announcement, and I suspect more colleges and universities will be making announcements shortly. And my feeling is once a big Ivy League university goes test blind or test optional for the year, I can anticipate that more and more colleges will follow suit. We've also had a big week. I think it was last week, College Board announced that they would be eliminating the SAT with essay and also the entire suite of subject tests. So we have a lot to talk about. I already see some questions coming in and we'll get started. My son got an email from a Cornell alumnus to set up an interview. I know they are not evaluative, but is it a reflection on his application that he got the request, or are they offered to everyone? So every college has a different policy about alumni interviews. Some colleges will offer them and try to offer them to every single applicant. Some colleges have eliminated them entirely. We know that. That's the case for the University of Chicago. Brown University is not offering any alumni interviews this year. Cornell does something a little bit different. They have an alumni network of alumni volunteers who will interview applicants, but it doesn't appear to be evaluative, although if you have an opportunity to have one of these conversations with a Cornell alum, I always say yes, because I think at the very least it will get back to the admissions office if you decline that opportunity to interview. Just getting an opportunity to have an interview for any college or university does not indicate necessarily that you are a competitive applicant. A lot of times it has to do with luck of the draw, where you live in the country, how many students from your area applied, how many alumni interviewers there are in your area. So it doesn't have to do with your application specifically. A lot of times it just has a lot to do with availability of interviewers and how many students from your area have applied. Next question. Colleges look for rigor and AP courses. My son, who is a freshman, is interested in science. He is in a governor's school. No APs offered freshman year, so for sophomore year choices, AP Environmental Science, Anatomy and Physiology honors, Human Genetics honors. Currently, he prefers medical science, but not sure yet. Should he take AP Environmental in sophomore year instead of the honors class as part of his elective so he can get more AP courses? He's also taking AP US History, I believe, so that would be 2 AP courses in sophomore year. Junior year, when he has about 4 to 5 AP courses, he can then take anatomy course to balance it out. I can just see the top of that a little bit. This is a really involved question, and as I often say to my Application Nation families, I probably need to see the school profile to see what things are offered, what classes are offered, whether there is a weighted GPA or a weighted class rank, and also the student's transcript to be able to weigh in. The good news is in Application Nation and Application Nation class of 2022, I am offering right now a chance for families to get that insight and give them a sense of what classes they should be taking for the following year and sometimes the following 2 years or 3 years if they are a younger student. Generally speaking though, if you want to apply as a pre-med applicant, you do want to have a full year of biology, a full year of chemistry, a full year of physics. Now sometimes students are able to take an AP Science in junior and senior year, whether it's AP Chem, Bio, or even AP Physics. All of those are going to be the most respected by the highly selected colleges. But it sounds like your child is coming from a very specialized program. Governor's School usually implies that these are really, really strong students, and there are different courses being offered as well. I can tell you that most admissions officers like to see AP classes, but for a sophomore, you're typically going to be taking chemistry, and it doesn't sound like that is exactly how the school works. My advice would be to look at other students from that high school who have applied and gotten admitted to the kinds of colleges that your son wants to apply and get admitted to, and that will give you a sense of what to take. Generally speaking, though, a class like anatomy isn't viewed as highly or as respected by admissions officers at highly selected colleges if there is an AP science class for the student to take. But for your son, he's going to a different type of high school. There's a different type of curriculum. We don't know if it's a weighted GPA or a weighted class rank. That could also factor in his decision on whether or not to take AP. So I probably need a little bit more information, but I hope you'll consider joining Application Nation because I offer that option to all the families in the group. All right, next question. With a record number of applications, how can a large state school really get through all of them, especially when they are test optional? How do they break it down? It's interesting, Catherine. We just discussed this in our Zoom call for Application Nation class of 2021. There were a lot of rumors over the last number of years about the University of Michigan. They have a very popular early action program and regular decision. And many people believed, I don't know for sure, but I think we can presume, many people believed that they deferred so many students from early action because they weren't able to get through all the applications in time. Now, let me mention that before this year, the University of Michigan always released their early action decisions right before Christmas. And it was, I'm sure, very difficult to get through tens of thousands of early action applications. So oftentimes, a lot of students, highly competitive early action students, would get deferred. And then a couple weeks later, all of a sudden, they would be admitted in January. And so that's why a lot of people believe that they just weren't able to get through all of those applications. I can tell you this year is probably a little bit different. We know that private and public institutions received record numbers of applications, even in the early round, but you could see that a number of them ended up releasing decisions later than what they usually do. So for all those private colleges and universities that deferred a lot, like Harvard, I cannot imagine that Harvard did not review all those applications before making decisions. My guess is they had to read through those applications a little bit faster than normal, but the truth of the matter is they had to get through all of them, and that's what you do as an admissions officer. You just make it happen. But these applications are being read a lot faster, even without test scores. My hope, though, is we start to get a better feel for what these colleges are doing, and in the end, students have some power in this process and can make some decisions by May 1st or a little bit after that. It sounds like a lot of colleges are going to be notifying students a little bit later than normal. We heard that the Ivies are going to be releasing their regular decision results on April 6th, and this is very different. In years past, we've seen them release regular decision results the last week of March, and we've also heard from a number of institutions that they're going to be extending their enrollment deposit beyond May 1st, so keep an eye on that. Next question. Do College Application Nation class of 2022 offer brainstorming for essay topics and help with review of the process, also help filling out common and coalition application? Yes, and a whole lot more. So every single month we tackle a different part of the admissions process and a different section of the application. So as I mentioned right now, I'm reviewing all the students in Application Nation. If they're interested, I want to review what classes they plan to take for the coming year, because your classes, especially going into senior year, can have a huge impact on your admissions decision. Then we're going to be talking about your college list in the month of February, and I weigh in to make sure that you have reach and target and likely schools on your list, and you have plenty of early programs on the list, including some rolling admissions programs as well that match up directly with objective pieces in your application, like your transcript, which includes curriculum and grades, and your test scores. Then we move into the spring. We're going to be working on all the student sound bites, making sure that they are the most powerful sound bites that are going to strengthen those applications and make the students even more confident about who they are. Then we go into the main essay. I approve every single student's topic for their main essay. I offer editing for the main essay, supplemental essay, and then we go through in the summer how to fill out every single section of the application. Every single month we're doing something next. And for those students in Application Nation who got deferred, I'm now editing and looking over their letters of continued interest for those students that got deferred from a top choice. So every step of the way, I'm right there making sure that you are doing the very best you can and taking advantage of every opportunity. All right, so I hope you'll join. Again, the Application Nation class of 2022 just launched last week. That's for those current juniors and their families. And then we have a younger group, Application Nation, for the class of 2023 and the class of 2024. Next question. If your dream school is a reach, should you try to apply directly as a senior or go through the community college path and then transfer over? Not sure if you get denied as a direct admit means you can't transfer over from a community college. We just discussed this tonight in Application Nation. Community college, is such a smart move. And students choose community college for a variety of reasons. One of them is it is a fraction of the cost. And so if a student has plans to go to graduate school or professional school down the road, a lot of those students are thinking long term, do I really want to go into a lot of debt for my undergraduate education? So community college can be a right financial move. It could be the right decision for a student who needs to live at home or save money or work as well. So there are going to be a lot of students from the community college system throughout the country. They've done very well, and they want to transfer into the 4-year college experience or a 4-year college. Sometimes they want to transfer into their local state university, and coming from the community college system can definitely help. And then there are going to be students who go to community college and want to transfer to a private university, an Ivy League university. I worked at the University of Pennsylvania. I've read transfer applications for Penn, and we always would have students coming from community college and doing really well and getting an opportunity to study at Penn either after 1 year at community college or sometimes 2. So it can be a really smart move for a lot of students. Transfer admissions, though, is a little bit different than freshman admissions. If you are applying as a transfer applicant, there is going to be a lot of focus on what you've done in college, wherever you are, whether it's at your local community college, a private college, a college overseas. It's your academic record from college and all the non-academic stuff that you've been doing that's going to matter a whole lot more than what you did back in high school. Next question. My daughter attends a large school that offers quite a few AP courses. In general, how many AP classes do highly selective colleges look for in applicants? At this point, she's on track to have 10 AP classes by graduation. Do you think this is sufficient, or should she be pushing to take more? I just worry about the trade-off between AP classes versus excellent grades. So this is a good question, and I get asked about it a lot. When you are deciding what classes to take, should you take a college prep curriculum? Should you take honors classes? Should you take advanced placement classes? You need to factor in a number of things. Number one, and most importantly, you need to do what's right for you. So some students can handle 5 AP courses junior year and senior year. Some students can only handle 1 or 2 classes of AP classes each year. It really first needs to come down to what the student is comfortable doing and what they think that they can handle. Taking AP classes and getting C's in them is probably not the best plan. If you are struggling to get A's and B's, you really do need to take a step back and make sure that you're taking these classes for the right reasons. So number one, you need to put yourself first and know that it's the right move for you. Number two, you've got to look at what your high school has to offer and if there are any restrictions. So there are a number of high schools across the country that will say, yes, we offer AP classes, but you're only permitted to take them, let's say, junior and senior year, or you're only able to take 2 AP classes a year. It really depends on what is available at your high school and what the limitations or opportunities are available as well. And it all comes down to what's being offered at your particular high school. So if your high school offers 20 AP classes, but the high school down the street doesn't offer any AP classes, students from those 2 high schools, their curriculum is not going to be compared to each other. They're going to be looked at within the context of their own high school because the curriculum is really going to vary from school to school. As I mentioned earlier, if you are curious to find out how many AP classes you should take, I would definitely talk to your college counselor if they're available, but also talk to some of the older students that you see. Look at those seniors who are getting into the colleges that you want to be admitted to, and ask them how many AP classes they took each year. But generally, the most you can really take usually is 5 AP classes your senior year, maybe 4 or 5 junior year. Sometimes you're permitted at certain high schools to take AP classes sooner than that, but it's really going to depend on what's being offered at your high school and what is right for you. Are STEM opportunities still strong for female students? And if so, do you have specific experience in working with those students? So STEM stands for science, technology, engineering, math. It also can include, any of those general sciences, anyone who's interested in being pre-med. Even some business students fall into that because you have to be really strong in math. What I'm seeing across the country is that there are tremendous opportunities for both male and female students in the STEM field. I think when I was applying to college, it was not as common to see female students within the STEM field who were pursuing AP classes in the sciences and math, who had opportunities outside of class to get involved with research or internships. And now I'm seeing that there are a lot of opportunities if we take COVID away from the situation, because I think that has really put a damper on a lot of students' opportunities. But I am seeing a lot of good opportunities for male and female students. I think if you were to look at the breakdown within a college's engineering program, let's say, you're still going to see that it is usually dominated by male students. I think the gap is getting closer, but you're still going to see it at almost every single engineering program that there are definitely more male students than female students, and this is also reflected in the applicant pool. What I'm finding though is that especially the highly selective colleges and universities who have engineering programs, who have really strong science and math programs, they aren't really giving those female students that extra edge like they did maybe 20, 30 years ago. So those female students who are interested in the STEM field, they've got to be just as strong as their male counterparts. Do I have experience working with students like that? Absolutely. I want to be honest, that's most of the students that I work with are students interested in engineering, computer science especially, biochemistry, neuroscience, business. Those are all fields that are super, super popular, and we have a lot of those students in Application Nation every single year. Next question, can you suggest which AP courses should students take with an interest in finance? Great question. So I mentioned that business is part of that very popular mix of majors. I often say that I would say business is the most popular major choice among the students that I work with. But because of that, you really need to go that extra step to make sure that you are distinguishing yourself among all those other students that are interested in business. Right now, the business majors, the undergraduate business programs at larger universities, they are the most popular, which means they're also going to be the most competitive. The most important class that someone who is interested in applying to an undergraduate business program needs to take or should be taking is calculus. At the very least, regular calculus by senior year. But if you're looking at the more selective business programs, you really should have the most advanced math classes under your belt before you graduate from high school. AP Calculus AB is a great class. AP Calculus BC, if you're able to take it, is even more rigorous. A lot of business applicants want to take AP statistics. I think that's a fine class to take because you're going to be taking statistics when you go to an undergraduate business program. But if you have a choice, you always should be picking AP Calculus AB or AP Calculus BC over AP statistics, absolutely every single time. Now, if you have room in your schedule and you want to double up in math, absolutely. You could take AP Calculus BC and AP statistics the same year, for example, but you don't want to take AP statistics in place of AP Calculus. Next question. How do admissions officers view IB courses versus AP courses? My daughter's high school has both options or combined classes like IB/AP economics, for example. Should she be taking both exams at the end of the year, or is there a preference between AP or IB? Okay. Almost always at a high school, whether it's a public high school or a private high school, almost always they will offer AP classes or the IB curriculum, and that is usually the most advanced curriculum choice that's offered at the high school. But there are some high schools, and I know of a really big public high school in my community which offers both AP classes and the full IB curriculum. Do admissions officers prefer one over the other? I would say almost always they would probably indicate that they're pretty equal. However, I think if push comes to shove and you actually have a real conversation with an admissions officer who's going to be super, super, super honest, I would say that they would probably indicate that if you do the full IB diploma, it probably shows that you're a really high achieving student, especially if you do well in those classes. But to be honest, not every student and their personality and their interest is going to match up with the full IB diploma. So I see a lot of students get into top colleges who take all AP classes if they have the option, who take the full IB program, who sometimes even take a mix, and that's perfectly acceptable. I think both curricula are going to be held at a really, high, they're going to be highly respected by all admissions officers. In terms of which exam to take, I would pick one of them. You should not be choosing both the AP and the IB exam in the same subject matter. You only should pick one of them if you have a choice. All right, next question. My daughter had a lower GPA in the first half of sophomore year due to health issues, and the second half was pass-failed due to COVID. She's a junior now with a 4.0 GPA. Can she mention her health issues in an essay to explain her lower GPA? Can Application Nation help with this? All right, this is actually, this happens a lot to students. They have health issues. It might be something serious. Maybe it kept them from school. Maybe they weren't able to keep up with their schoolwork even though they were able to go to school every day. There are lots of scenarios. What I would say is if it's just purely health related and not COVID related, my recommendation is for the college counselor of record to talk about the students' health issues and how it impacted their performance, their achievement in high school. I think it is always best when it comes from the college counselor of record. For some reason, admissions officers will take that information and be a little bit more understanding, I think. If you don't believe that the college counselor of record is going to be able to discuss that in the letter of recommendation, the student can absolutely comment or provide an explanation. I wouldn't necessarily turn your main college essay into an explanation about your health issue. I would probably provide a short paragraph, short and sweet, not making excuses about what happened, but kind of explaining the things that the student faced. And I would probably put that in the additional information section of Common App. I would not devote the student's main college essay to it, because what ends up happening with the main college essay is it acts as an anchor for your application. It is oftentimes, the topic is how admissions officers remember the student. And I don't think most students want to be remembered for a health issue or the fact that their grades went down during a semester or during a year of high school. So instead of letting that dictate the application, you can just provide a short explanation if your college counselor is not willing to do that. If a student's grades have gone down because of COVID, because of virtual learning, because they actually had COVID or a family member had it and it was very serious, then that's an explanation that should go into the COVID section of Common App or Coalition App. And that's actually found right after the main essay in Common App. You would see an extra spot, an additional information section, and also that COVID section, and you can provide an explanation there. Can I help with that? Absolutely. I can review, I can edit all of those explanations if you're a part of Application Nation. Next question. At top schools that are test optional, will students who do not submit standardized test scores be at a disadvantage? I truly believe that if a college is test optional, students who do not submit scores will not be disadvantaged in the admissions process as long as everything else in their application meets the high standards of that college or university. If you're considering a highly selective college, for example, and they are test optional, and most of them are this year, and you don't submit test scores, that means everything else in your application really needs to be exceptional for you to have the best chance of admission. So that means that for your transcript, you need to be taking the most challenging classes, probably in every single subject matter for all 4 years of high school. Your grades don't necessarily have to be perfect, but they need to be really, they need to have a lot, you have to have a lot of A's, I would say, on your transcript. A B here or there is probably not going to be a big deal, but a mostly A record. Your recommendation letters need to be from teachers who are basically saying, you know, this is one of the top students of my career, and here's why. Your essays, your main essay and your supplemental essays need to be kind of meet that high bar that standardized test scores can do for an application. It's almost like, you know, you want your essays to look like a 1600 SAT score, for example. And your extracurricular activities, your activities list, it needs to show leadership, it needs to show impact, it needs to show that you are doing something really, really special with your free time. And that can be a family responsibility, that can be a job, that can be being a part of a club or an organization, or even an independent hobby. So everything else in that application needs to be super, super strong if you're not submitting test scores. And you will not be disadvantaged in the admissions process, but you got to make sure that everything in the application is exceptional and meets the high standards of that institution. Next question. Hi, Roberto. With the pandemic still raging on, what's a good way for students to develop their college list without having visited schools? Great question. So, you know, it is the end of January, and I'm going to be honest, in a typical year, a lot of high school juniors would have done some college visits over the, long weekend, the MLK Junior extended weekend. A lot of juniors would have been planning spring break to visit colleges, but right now we're not able to do that in person for the most part. So what I'm encouraging students to do is start virtually, and I am hopeful that, by summer, by fall, families will be able to visit colleges in person again. I'm going to be honest though, the virtual campus tour and virtual information sessions were not very good before COVID hit. But a lot of colleges have been investing a lot of time and money making sure that their virtual tours and presentations and information sessions are as effective as possible. And frankly, these colleges are going to have a lot more reach by offering these virtual options right on their website. So I would first start virtually. I would also dig around on the college's website. So if you're interested in a particular department or major or program, go to that webpage on the college's website and dig around. Look at the faculty members, look at the research they're doing, look at the classes that are offered, any special programming or research opportunities. Make sure you do your research, because you don't want to get into a situation where you haven't done your research and you are just saying you like a college, you've got to have reasons to back it up, even if you haven't visited the college just yet. So those virtual opportunities through the admissions office and checking out departmental pages are really going to help you. And then you can also talk to students who go there. If there's anyone from your high school who graduated, who attends that college or university, reach out to them because they can also give you some great insight and perspective. And that's how we get started. Frankly, there are a lot of students in the class of 2021 who have not visited any colleges just yet. So I'm really hopeful, at least for those high school seniors, that they'll be able to step foot on a couple of college campus in the next couple of weeks and months to make a better, well-informed decision about where they're planning to go. Next question. My daughter is currently a junior. She took her ACT in sophomore year and did well on it. Are colleges that require test scores from junior year and beyond? Okay, so if a student takes the ACT or SAT at any point in high school, they can absolutely use that when they apply to college. If they're happy with that score, if it happened freshman year, sophomore year, junior year, or kind of more commonly, senior year, absolutely, they can submit those scores to colleges. Are there many homeschooled students in Application Nation? There are. We probably have a handful every single year. And what's interesting about homeschooled applicants is they present differently than they did 10 or 20 years ago, and they are received differently by colleges and admissions officers than they used to be. So I've got a lot of advice for parents who are helping their child navigate, and they're serving as their child's parent, college counselor, advisor, and sometimes even teacher. But the key thing is for a homeschooled applicant to have as many opportunities to show some objective feedback, commentary, and have some outside experiences outside of your homeschooled situation. So letters of recommendation, if you can even get them from a college professor, if you've taken some college classes, have some opportunities outside of your home to show that you are an engaged citizen in your community, because colleges want those students to not only be good academic students, they want to also bring in strong community members as well. So we always have a handful every single year. I would say it probably mimics the overall applicant pool for colleges and universities. The number of homeschooled applicants is still a small percentage of an overall applicant pool. You're probably looking at 5%, maybe 10% at the most of a college's applicant pool is coming from homeschooled applicants every single year. Next question. Hi, Sarah. With the spike in applications this year, do you see the trend continuing for 2022? What are you hearing for application volumes for schools that are below that most selective range? Are they seeing the same spikes? I do believe we're going to continue to see this trend continue for the class of 2022. Part of it is because students aren't able to visit these colleges on campus, every single college on their list. And usually, as I mentioned to Politico magazine this past week, the article came out today, you don't have that gut check. I mentioned this to the Brown student newspaper last week. You don't have that gut check. When you visit a college campus, you can usually tell, sometimes in minutes, whether or not that college is a good match for you. Without being able to visit, I think the current high school juniors are going to have longer college lists. And as I mentioned to a number of people, it's not that we have more students applying to college this year or next year. We have more students applying to more colleges. So they've got a longer college list, and that creates more applications in an applicant pool. And so I would anticipate that this trend will continue at least for the next several years, because with COVID, there's a lot of uncertainty, and as a result, a lot of students will ultimately apply to more colleges. Am I seeing this with every single college? I'm seeing it with highly selective, very selective, and also selective colleges, but there are some exceptions to that rule. And the best way to know is if a college has extended their application deadline, especially for regular decision, a couple of days, I wouldn't see a big deal about it. But if they are extending their admissions deadline a month after what they typically have as a deadline, that's usually a sign that they are struggling to get applications. All right, one more question. Could you please suggest some summer activities? All right, there's so many opportunities for summer. I would say you can absolutely get a typical summer job if you're able to. I would say that you don't have to have some fancy job like an internship at some big corporation. I often say that manual labor jobs get the most respect by admissions officers. So if you are a custodian, if you are a construction worker, if you are a landscaper this summer, great. That's a great opportunity to earn some money and get a lot of respect by admissions officers. You can also do a lot for your family. So I know my daughter this past summer, she was in charge of taking care of her 2 younger siblings because my husband and I worked full time and we couldn't send them to camp. So she took on a big responsibility at home. You can pursue an independent project. I call them homegrown projects. You'll have to join Application Nation to get even more ideas about it. But I would encourage you to do something productive because here's the last point that I want to make. Ideally, you want to report something on your activities list on your application. You want something reportable from the summer right before you apply to college especially. So on that note, we've got to wrap up. I hope that this has been helpful for all of you. If you like getting answers from me on a regular basis, I encourage you to join Application Nation or Application Nation Class of 2022. I'm on the discussion board every single day. Sometimes it feels like 24 hours of the day. I'm answering questions. I'm also offering 2 Zoom calls a month, looking over college lists, providing essay topics, editing essays, providing course selection recommendations. So a lot of help for all those families and students out there. I want to wish everybody a good rest of January. I want a healthy February, and I hope to see you back here again in a few short weeks. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.